Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi wa ya Mawlaya ya Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Ya rahmatallahil wasi'ah wa ya baba najatil ummah. يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلا تبتم وتعبت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم سيدي فيا ليتنا يا ليتنا يا ليتنا كنا معكم سعادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق ونور عرش أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين أما بعد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتاب الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تحبط أعمالكم وأنتم لا تشعرون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. I can please request if everybody could just please come as close to the front as possible, please. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Just so that there's no interruptions in the middle, please, if you could just come as close to the front. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajum. My respected and beloved elders, brothers and sisters, my respected scholar, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, the most beneficent, the most merciful, Malik al-Muluk, the master of all masters, Shahanshah, the king of kings. Truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed all of his creation in that which he's given us the opportunity to exist, and he's given us the ability to promote that which is good and to forbid that which is evil, and has allowed us, the human being, to be on a everlasting and infinite conquest of infinity and of perfection. And we've spoken about these concepts, and I reiterate them over and over again, because anything, or as much as we mention the mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we've always mentioned less. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Rahman, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, which of your mercies, or which of the mercies of your Lord will you belie? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us in such a way that we can continue on this perfection and on this journey towards the truth. I remember even a narration of Imam al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajum. That one time he's a very young man, and a man sees him from far away, and he sees a little boy crying. And he's thinking that, he's seeing another kid, or he's seeing other kids play with toys, so he's probably shedding tears, because of this issue. So the man, when he sees Imam al-Askari, he doesn't know this is Hassan bin Muhammad. So he goes to him and he says, oh boy, are you crying because you don't have toys? He says, you think I cry for this? He said, do you think we were created in this world for toys? So the man's thinking to himself that I came thinking that this little boy is crying because he doesn't have toys. And then he says to him, Imam al-Askari replies to him, he says, oh man, have you read the Quran? He says, yes. He says, have you read chapter 23, Surah Al-Mu'minun? He says, yes. Have you read verse number 115? Yes. It says in chapter 23, verse number 115, أَفَحَاسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ وَأَبَاثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. That it says, do you think that we created all of mankind? Do you think we've created you without a purpose? Do you think we've created you without a goal? And that you're not going to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. That you will not return back? And the reason I'm saying this is because many a times when it comes to finding our purpose, when it comes to realizing our goal in this life, and I'm using both of those two terms interchangeably, because our goal and our purpose are essentially they're the same. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? Or Imam al-Askari is saying what? Do you think that I've created you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you think I've created you without a purpose? That finding your purpose is at times difficult. And I've had brothers and sisters tell me sometimes, when I want to make the transition to becoming a better person, if I want to make a transition to becoming a better Muslim, it's very difficult. And what advice do you give me? And the advice that we need to give our youth, and we need to help our younger generation and all of us in that fact, because the realization of our purpose and goal is essential, that we reiterate it time and time again. That our imams come forth and they say what? Make sure that you do hisab of your nighttime. At nighttime, make sure you do hisab of your day. Because if you do hisab of your day and you're thinking, what sins did I commit? And what sins can I refrain from? And how I've been disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how I must change in order to realize my goal. If I keep telling and asking myself this question, hence now my mindset, my goal, and my purpose, I'm putting in my head and I'm putting within my soul. That it takes time to become a better Muslim. It takes time to learn and recognize your goal and be consistently working towards it. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I've created man and I've created jinn in order for them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a lifelong progression. It doesn't just happen. We can't just expect every day to, sometimes people ask me, I want to start Salatul Layl, how do I start? Usually it's very difficult to start every single night. But some of our scholars say what? In order for you to start getting into the habit of it, you do it time. You do it one night, for example, a week. Then you do it the next week. You may do 1 or 2 nights. Then the week after you do 3. Until eventually you've trained yourself and you've put it into yourself that I want to recite Salatul Layl. And the fact that we're going to have ups and downs in our evolution, or as our evolution of our character and our intellect and of our religion goes on, we're going to have biorhythms where some days we're going to feel religious and others we won't. It's normal. Many times people say, sometimes I don't feel like praying. So what can I do in this situation? It's easy to pray when you want to. But when you don't want to, it's like shaitan is holding on to you and he'll never let go. What's important for us to understand is there's going to be days where we feel like praying. There's going to be days where we feel like worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some days we will feel emotional and connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other days we'll feel disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most important thing for us to understand is that the days that we don't feel like worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the days we don't feel grateful, the days we don't feel an emotional connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the training that we must go through in order to flip the scale. That the days that we don't feel like being religious is the day that we're training for. That the day that I pray salah, that's training for me the day that I don't want to pray salah. It's difficult and it takes time. And even as we evolve as a person, we may lose friends, we may lose people who want to talk to us, who want to be with us. But that's something that once you understand the greater purpose, you recognize your goal on this earth, once you recognize this and you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now all of a sudden, even if I lose anything in this world, if I have my goal and my purpose as towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then nothing else in this world matters. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That's why when somebody, it's a reality of life, but when somebody loses a father or a mother, usually you'll see 2 types of reactions. You'll very rarely see a person after their parents pass away, you'll very rarely see them just be the same exact person. If a person is usually irreligious or unreligious, you'll see that sometimes they'll say, Ya Allah, you took my parents away from me, I never want to worship you. How could you do such a thing? That we have people in the world today, for example, like Richard Dawkins, he has a narrative where he talks about, if I met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, if I did, hypothetically, he's saying, then I would say this to him: how could you cause hatred like this in the world? How could you cause people to die like this? How could you cause famine, hunger, thirst? How could you cause these things? And inshallah we'll speak about these issues in the world, and I'll show and we'll look and examine, is it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who causes these issues, or is it man who's being unjust to himself? But you see what happens? They have narratives of what? Of I don't like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will tell him on the Day of Judgment, I don't want to worship you. Then you have another person. You have a person who, when their father or their mother passes away, now my mentality is, I may have been religious in the past, or I may have been irreligious, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away my parents. I want to go closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this away, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this mercy away from me, my parents, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took them away from me, now I want to go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's essential, brothers and sisters, because death, even when we look at death, death is a mercy upon mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ. We created death and then life. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if I create you in a life without a purpose, then what's your goal on this earth? If I create you where you're going to live infinitely, and you don't have a realization that I have a purpose, that I have a goal, hence you are purposeless. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ. That I've created death and I have created life. أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. To see which of you is best indeed. Even when we look at a narration of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. When we look at a narration of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, and this is the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you put, that Ya Allah, I'm submitting to you. Ya Allah, I want to go towards you. My path is nothing but for you now, Ya Allah. That one time there's a companion of Imam al-Hadi named Yunus Naqash. Yunus Naqash was a jeweler. He narrates, he narrates that I was working on a stone for a Abbasid Khulafa. This Abbasid Khalifa, he wanted me to, make a stone for him. And I happened to drop the stone, and the stone broke in half. I was making this stone, I was making it for his daughter. And the stone, when I dropped it by mistake, accidentally, it fell on the floor and it cracked into two pieces. And if he finds out that this amazing stone, I've cracked it and I can't repay him back for it, this man is going to kill me. Yunus Naqash goes to Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, and when he goes to him, he says, Ya Imam, I have a very big issue. So Imam al-Hadi sees him anxious. He says, relax, we'll help you out, whatever it is. When Yunus Naqash tells Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, he says, this is what's happened to me. The stone is split in two. What do I do? Imam al-Hadi says, make sure you have tawakkul on Allah. And don't worry, tomorrow, if you have that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything will be okay. So Yunus Naqash is still, if I were in that situation, brothers and sisters, and put yourselves in that situation, if you've dropped the stone, and your life is at risk now, no matter, we're in the position sometimes we think that, Ya Allah, you're going to help me, but, are you really going to help me that much? That's why there's a saying that don't tell your Lord you have great problems, tell your problems you have a great Lord. You see that Yunus Naqash, he goes home, but he's still very anxious. It feels like he's gotten half a reply from the Imam. So he goes home the next day, they come and they say, Yunus, we want you to come to the palace. And he's thinking to himself, they must be getting the blade sharp at this point. He goes to the Khalifa, and when he goes to the Khalifa, they say, where's the stone? He said, it's at home, it's sitting, it's safe, And then they say to him, the Abbasid Khulafa says to him, but I want you to do me a favor. He says, what is it? He says that I know you were molding this one stone, but I have two daughters and they got into a fight over it. So now I want you to take this amazing stone and I want you to split it in half. When you put that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you have that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you hang on to His rope, when you understand what your greater purpose is in this world, nothing can shake you, brothers and sisters. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reiterates, for example, have tawakkul Allah, have this, make sure you have this trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you keep it. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, and I want to make sure that we make the Quran central in all discussions, brothers and sisters. Because at the end of the day, I remember, even, when I was told, when I decided I want to be a better person, I asked a scholar, what should I do? He said, make sure the Quran is your barometer. Make sure you make the Quran, you become a walking, talking Quran. That at any point, that whenever you see any experience, that you remember Quran. Because if you remember Quran, and you've trained yourself in such a way, that no matter what trial comes towards you, you'll turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you'll remember His ni'mah. So you see in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And then it says, we've given you this Quran as a mercy, as a guide to all, as a shifa, as an intercessor, shifa'un wa rahmatun, as a mercy to all of mankind. وَلَا يُزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. And this will be hurtful, and the Quran will be disliked by who? By the people who are the oppressors. That a person who doesn't want to go towards the truth, a person who doesn't want to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sees the truth of the Quran being put in front of him, he'll dislike it very much. Even today in the world we have, many people who want to attack Islam. That the moment there's any attack, determine, is he a Muslim or is he a non-Muslim? Once we determine that, if he's a non-Muslim, say, there was another reason. Not to say there are other reasons, but say, there was another reason. But if it's a Muslim, even if it was something else, make sure you say, oh no, He did it because he wanted to, he wanted to kill us. They wanted to butcher us. Sharia law in America. We have these things, unfortunately. And there was a brother who did an interview after 9/11. They did an interview and they said, "Why is it that you follow Islam?" And he said, "Because it's the truth." And the radio host was stunned because he was expecting a very long answer. The radio host asked him, why do you practice the religion of Islam? He said, "Because it's the truth." And is there any other reason why any person would follow the religion of Islam? But if we want to understand the truth, brothers and sisters, we have to hold on to this Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another verse of Quran, for example, says what? In Surah Al-Waqi'ah, chapter 56, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "I swear by the falling stars, by the stars that are falling, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this oath that we have, it's a great oath, only if you knew. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ وَإِنَّهُ لَقَسَمٌ لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَظِيمٌ إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. That this Quran is an excellent, it's an outstanding book. It's a holy book. Many times we lose sight of this Quran. That if we want to be that balanced person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be, that person who's balanced but yet has his priorities in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to hold on to the Quran. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says in Surah Al-Rahman, chapter 55, وَأَقِيمُ الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُ الْمِيزَانِ. That I've given you this perfect balance. Do not tip the scale. That when you look at a book like the Quran, a book cover to cover where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala solely is the author. That's something very unique about our book, brothers and sisters. That if you look at with the Bible, or if you look at the Bible within the religion of Christianity, you see that this book has commentary from other people, for example, such as St. Paul. I was having a conversation with this one lady. We were having, I was doing a school project, or a community school project for school, and we were put in the same room, and this lady, she's Catholic, and we start having this conversation while we're working. As we're having this conversation, I said, Paul has commentary in the Bible, and he disagrees with Prophet Isa. He disagrees with Jesus on a couple issues. Why is it that St. Paul, if he's writing this book, if he's writing this Bible, and Jesus is supposed to be the one, or the law of Jesus is the one we're supposed to be following, why is it that St. Paul speaks in this? St. Paul, he didn't have the best of paths. He actually killed a lot of people. Why is it that you trust this person all of a sudden, that I've received revelation? And I'm not trying to disrespect our Christian brothers, at any sort of point, but these are facts. So I said to her, and I kept asking her question after question after question. I asked her about the crucifixion of Isa alayhi salam. I asked her about the original sin. How can God create all of humanity with a sin that they didn't even commit? How is this an equal? How is this equal to everyone else? And I continued, and I asked her, tomorrow, if you found out that Islam was the religion of truth, would you follow this religion? She says, no. I said, why is that? She says, because what I've seen, I want to stick to my religion. But I said, even if you know it's the truth, you're still going to go towards something else? And I thought to myself that if insan has this idea, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides all of us. But if we have this idea that I'm stuck in my ways, that, this is the religion, even if we know something else is the truth, it's a very dangerous scenario, brothers and sisters. I remember when I was looking at Islam as I was growing up, and I said, what? I don't want to be lied to. I want to know exactly where the truth is. That today when I say Muhammad and Al-Muhammad are the best role models, that the Quran is a book that is unparalleled, it's because we have to do our own research and we have to reflect on these issues. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Luqman, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ يَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَى بَابِ السَّعِيرِ. That when it says to them, and then when it said to them, that this is revealed, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. This is a revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Will you follow? They say what? We will follow that which our fathers followed. And they say, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says so beautifully, brothers and sisters, even if shaitan is calling you towards the hellfire, even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or shaitan is calling you towards the hellfire, you know this is not your greater purpose. You know this is not the ultimate truth. وَقُلْ جَعَ الْحَقْ وَزَّهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. That truth will be ever prevalent. Falsehood will be vanishing. Falsehood will always be vanishing. You'll always be able to know what the truth is, what right is and what wrong is. That's why Karbala is so powerful, because it left absolutely no gray areas in between what is right and what is wrong. From the beginning of the message of Abdullah al-Hussein in Karbala, you see there's not a single idea or a single point that we can make where Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, oh, he made a mistake. From buying the land to everything, to even him not starting the war. You see, Umar ibn Sa'ad, he makes sure that everybody bears witness, that everybody does shahada of the fact that he's the first one to shoot the arrow. He says, oh people, look, I am the first one to shoot the arrow. That's why you see that truth will always be differentiated from falsehood. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajum. But this Quran is important for us to hold on to. You see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is speaking about the balance in the Quran, there are many things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about. Especially morality, because morality is difficult for insan to attain by himself. It is impossible. That's why we see, many of the such immorality in the society we see today. Why? It's because we've lost sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've lost sight of the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in chapter 62, verse number 5, Surah Al-Jumu'ah, we hear the verse, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ حُمِّلُوا التَّوْرَاةَ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَحْمِلُوهَا كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. This the likeness, the example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us many examples in the Quran. وَيَضْرُبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ. We've given you we've given you this example as a mercy to you. We've shown you. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, are you going to keep this Quran? Are you going to do it like the people of the Torah who would keep the Torah on their back, like a donkey keeps it? If I take a book and I put it on the back of a donkey and I say, what's on this book? They won't be able to tell me. It's just going to make a bunch of noise. In the same way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I gave you such a principled book. I gave you such a balanced book. What are you going to do with it? Hence in the Quran, you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes sure I include science, I include historical accuracy, I include historical predictions, and I make sure above all else that if I'm giving this book to humanity, that humanity will be guided upright with it. Tilka ayatul kitab al-hakim, that this book is filled with wisdom. Hudan wa rahmatan lil muhsinin. That it's a guidance and a mercy for those who are doers of good. الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. This is the one, this book, the believers who pray, they offer they offer their prayers, they make sure they uphold the taxes, and they have firm belief in the day of judgment. الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. That this, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ, it's a guidance from your Lord for those who want to be successful towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence you see even in the Quran, I want to get into a few of the historical and scientific predictions. But one point I want to make is, people come forth and say, why is it that the entire Quran, why isn't it filled with science? As in, if the Quran, said E equals mc squared, or gave us theories of, for example, general relativity, and gave us many of these theories, why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just give us a book of science? Because if the Quran is a book of only science, people in Arabia back then don't have a lot of sense in them, that they don't have the tools of science that we do today. Hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a book that from the time of the Holy Prophet, and even if you put this book in the time of Adam alayhi salam, till the time that the last person is walking on this earth, this book can be applicable to everybody. You look at a scientific miracle, you see in Surah Yunus chapter 10, you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in chapter 10 you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala predicts and says what? He says that this Fir'aun who's transgressed and who's made such statements like these, for example, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a blatant liar, I don't like this one. And one who's arrogant like this person, I'm going to make sure that his body is preserved until the day of judgment. And you look today, they've discovered these tombs. In the time of the Holy Prophet, these tombs were underground. They discovered these tombs after the Holy Prophet passed away, after the Quran is revealed. And when they saw every other Pharaoh had his body disintegrated. But you see today what? You see the body of Fir'aun is still intact. You look at something else. I remember I discussed this a little bit on the first night. I want to make sure that we discuss it completely. Haman, who was the henchman of Fir'aun, was thought for a very long time to be in the time of Bani Israel, in the time of a Babylonian king of the Israelites, instead of the time of Fir'aun. And for many years, brothers and sisters, many years until the 17th, 18th century, people said Islam has it incorrect in the Quran. If I ask you a question today, if the Quran has one mistake in it, would you believe in that book? If we ask a believer, if you're going to pick a book, If it has one mistake in it, can you follow this book? Definitely not. For many years, brothers and sisters, people said what? That you the Muslims, you have it wrong. Haman wasn't in the time of Fir'aun. He was in the time of a Babylonian king. Brothers and sisters, and I want to give you a little bit of background on this. When people made these accusations, you see that the Egyptians in that time, what they would do is they would write in a specific language. They would write in a specific language called hieroglyphs. We've seen them, their pictures. So you can't really you can't really translate hieroglyphs. So the Egyptians, after the 2nd and 3rd century, when the Christians, were starting to occupy their lands, they gave up this idea of writing hieroglyphs. So the language was lost in translation now. Because if you stop speaking the language, if you're not transferring it from one generation to another, the language is going to be lost. So you see what happens is that after the 2nd and 3rd century, they can't find it. In the 17th century, brothers and sisters, 18th century, you see that there's they have all of the hieroglyphs, but they come across one, they discover this one tablet. And in this tablet, it had 3 different languages in it. It had Greek, it had the Egyptian hieroglyphics, and it had another language called Demotic. What they did was, they took the translation from the Greek, they worked it in order to find the words and to find the translation of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Once they did that, a man by the name of Jean-François Champollion, what he did was he translated from Greek into French. And they came up with the discovery that Haman was in the time of Fir'aun. For many years, people said, Quran doesn't have it properly. But you see what? You see the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see that this is a book unadulterated by any. That the same Quran that was revealed in the time of the Holy Prophet is the same Quran that we have today. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajhum. And even when we look at the conversation of Luqman, I've been mentioning, and I mentioned Surah Luqman, chapters like Luqman, Hujurat, very, very often. Surah Al-Mulk. These chapters are essential, brothers and sisters. If we want to build akhlaq in a community, if we want to, make sure that we have a foundation for our lives, we have to establish remembrance of these 2 surahs. That I remember even thinking that I didn't understand the akhlaq of the Holy Prophet until I read Surah Al-Hujurat. And especially at Fajr time, I urge myself and I urge all of us, make sure that we recite this Quran, that we remember, Inna Quran al-Fajr kana mashhuda. That this morning recitation is witnessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see that when Luqman is speaking to his son, in verses, for example, 11, 12, 13, there's something unique. Because when he's speaking to his son, he starts off with the foundation. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, هَذَا خَلْقُ اللَّهِ فَأَرُونِي مَاذَا خَلَقَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ بَلِ الظَّالِمُونَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything you worship other than Him, you're going to be selling yourself short. And then he continues and he says, what, for example? وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِإِبْنِهِ. And he speaks to his son. Then you see a shift all of a sudden. Because Luqman is speaking to his son, and the dialogue starts, and then it stops for a second, and then it starts again. And there's hikmah in this, brothers and sisters. Because the next thing that Luqman is going to say to his son, if a father says this to his son, you see that if he says it through his own tongue, it seems a little bit fishy, it seems a little bit odd. Because the next thing, after believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after not associating others with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the next thing that he tells him is make sure you're obedient to your parents. But when this dialogue of being obedient to the parents starts, you see Luqman is no longer speaking. Because if this comes from the tongue of Luqman, it's going to seem as if he wants to do it for his own, for his own gain. That I've given you, I've raised you, but now I want you to help me. Hence, you see that the dialogue stops. And then you see the dialogue starts again. He says what? Ya bunayya innaha in takum mithqala habbatin. Then he continues and he says, Ya bunayya aqim as-salah wa'mur bil ma'ruf wa la tusa'ir khaddaka lin-nas. You see that he continues, waqsid fi mashyika waqdud min sawtik. You see that Luqman continues talking again. Because if Luqman continues and says to his son, I want you to respect me. I want you to be respectful to your parents, to be thankful to them, to be thankful to us for all that we've given you, all of a sudden is tainted. Hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? I will give him this message. Can you imagine the wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? that in the precise and concise nature of the Quran, even these minor things, it seems like minor things, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing what? He's saying, when I give you this book, I'm going to give you a book that no one in mankind can match. Salawat ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Wa ala Muhammad. And I want to quickly go into a couple of verses of Surah Hujurat, because brothers and sisters, this power of the tongue that Luqman speaks about, this power that he has, it's essential, brothers and sisters. We have to understand that the power of the tongue, we can use it to really help something, we can use it to speak out, or we can use it to be like Yazid, where we use our tongue and we curse. Even Yazid in the bazaar of Sayyidah Zainab, he says what? He says, look, or Ibn Ziyad says to Zainab, he says, look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done to you. And Sayyidah Zainab replies with a marvelous reply. She says, what has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala done for us? He has given us, I see nothing but beauty here. Look at that power, brothers and sisters. Look at that power. That we have to make sure that this tongue is looked after. That we have to make sure we rein in our tongue. If our tongue is reined in, you'll find that life will become easier for us. That when you look at the life of the Holy Prophet, and even when I praise the Holy Prophet, brothers and sisters, it's not that the Holy Prophet needs our praise. We need to praise him. When you look at the Holy Prophet and the life that he had, if we study him for the rest of eternity, we won't even have scratched the surface. The Holy Prophet, and I want you to think about the verbal assault and his replies to how people would assault him verbally. Because in the time of Medina, the Holy Prophet, there was a year called Amul Wufud. In this year called Amul Wufud, this was called the year of the delegations. Because many of the tribes around Medina, they wanted to come and convert to the religion of Islam. Because they wanted to come and convert to the religion of Islam, you see that sometimes they would be very disrespectful. Often they would be disrespectful. And I want you to take into comparison that the Prophet is never someone to raise his voice. The Prophet is a very kind, gentle, loving, caring person. That's why Sahaba and so many people were attracted to him. That people would curse at him and he would be respectful back to them. You see that the Holy Prophet, and I want to give us this narration to see the kindness in the heart of the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet one time is standing and a companion comes to him. A companion, he was a farmer. He comes to him and he says, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to try this fruit. And there's other companions around as well. So usually Rasulullah, what he would do is when he would get offered a piece of fruit, a piece of food, sweets, he would offer it to the rest of the companions. So the Holy Prophet takes the food and he very quickly puts it in his mouth. And he eats the whole thing. And the companions are thinking, this is so different. Rasulullah would never do something like this. That some of the companions even got upset. So they say, Ya Rasulullah, why is it? The farmer would give him, tell me, how is my harvest? So the Holy Prophet eats it and he says, it's good, alhamdulillah. Ya Rasulullah, why didn't you share it with us? He says, because when I saw the fruit, I saw that it wasn't ripe. And I knew that if you would have eaten it, you would have been disrespectful. You would have spit it back out. And because I wanted to avoid humiliation for that person, and I wanted to avoid humiliation for yourself, I ate the fruit so that there's no disrespect between brothers in faith. Can you imagine the level of the Holy Prophet? The Holy Prophet, in Surah 49, verse number 2, Surah Al-Hujurat, you see that there would be companions who would come to the Holy Prophet, and they would do what? They would raise their voice. That there was a tribe coming called Banu Tamim. Banu Tamim was coming, and they were coming to convert to the religion of Islam. And when they were coming to convert to the religion of Islam, you see that there were two companions who are very well known in history. Two companions, they start to raise their voice in front of the Holy Prophet in a very disrespectful way. The Holy Prophet is standing there and they're yelling in front of the Holy Prophet. And it was very disrespectful. It upset the Prophet a lot. To the extent that Surah Al-Hujurat, 2nd and 3rd verse were revealed. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum. O you who believe, do not raise your voice in front of the Holy Prophet like you do in front of yourself, lest your deeds become useless, lest your deeds are null. And even if you continue with the signs of disrespect to the Holy Prophet, look, if we don't rein in our tongues, if we don't watch what we say, if we're not being respectful to all of our elders, if we're not watching out, Shaitan says what? When you're angry, it's like my soul is in your heart. And it's as if I'm looking through your eyes. Shaitan says, when you're angry, I make you more angry. You look at another event in the life of the Holy Prophet, and this is when the Holy Prophet is on his deathbed. The Holy Prophet is on his deathbed, And he says, I want you to give me a pen and I want you to give me a paper. There were companions who were surrounding his deathbed. I want you to give me a pen and I want you to give me a paper. Why? Why, Rasulullah? Why do you want us to give you a paper? He says, so I can write down for you what you need to follow in order that you don't go astray. But see, some people's position, some people's khilafat is in jeopardy now. Because if this Muhammad writes it down, and even this, people say the Holy Prophet was illiterate. They say he's illiterate. This is one of the proofs that he asked for a pen and paper on his deathbed. Because if the Holy Prophet writes down, follow these, the Ummah will have no choice but to follow what the Holy Prophet is saying. That a companion raises his voice and he says, the Holy Prophet is delusional. People say that, these companions, they knew the Quran. And with all due respect, they may have. But they forget verses of Surah Al-Najm. وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Holy Prophet only reveals, by the falling star, the Holy Prophet only reveals that which I tell him. That he only speaks of what's revealed onto him. That he doesn't err nor does he go astray. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another chapter of the Quran, وَلَوْ تَقَوْلَا إِلَيْنَا بَعْدَ لَقَوِيلٍ. That if the Holy Prophet, if he were to say, that out of his own means, that we would grab him by his right hand, that we would seize him. And I swear, brothers and sisters, it was the Holy Prophet that when he's walking to the house of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, when he was walking, when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was born, it was different than when Imam al-Hassan was born. Because they were born within a year or within a year and a half, very short time span, or within 2 years. When Rasulullah was walking towards the house of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, you see that the Holy Prophet was walking with very joyous steps. And when he's walking to the house of Hussein, he's walking with very sad steps because the Holy Prophet knows what's coming. That the Holy Prophet, when he was a kid, he would see Habib ibn Madahir playing with Hussein ibn Ali. He would see him playing with Hussein ibn Ali, and he would see that Hussein ibn Ali would run away sometimes. And when he'd be running away, Habib would take the sand that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein just stood on, and he would put it on his face. That he would kiss Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Habib was an immense friend of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Habib, when he was, you have this narration of Habib playing with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. You see that when the caravan of Karbala, when they reached the land of Karbala, when they finally settled down, after Hur brings his army, the 1,000 soldiers, you see that they're stopped in the land of Karbala. Now you have people like Umar ibn Sa'ad that they start walking in. And Umar ibn Sa'ad, he's a commander. He's the commander of the whole army, but he's a commander. He brings 3,000 or 4,000 soldiers. You see Khuli, he brings 3,000 or 4,000 soldiers. You see that, for example, Hurmala, he brings 3,000 or 4,000 soldiers. And brothers and sisters, these people were ones who were just dejected. That in their hearts, no rahmah. That they devised a plan that when we're walking in, we're going to make sure that the horses are stampeding when they're passing by the camp of Hussein, that when they're passing by the camp of Hussein and the camp of Zainab and the camp of the thirsty children, we're going to make sure that the horses stomp down very hard on the ground. And we play the drums very loud so that the kids get scared. You see that when they're doing this, Sayyidah Zainab comes to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. She says, "Oh Hussein, don't you have a friend who will come to help us?" And Abu Abdullah al-Hussein starts writing a letter to Habib ibn Madahir. He says, when he sends the letter, you see that the servant arrives at the house of Habib ibn Madahir. And when he arrives at the house of Habib ibn Madahir, he knocks on the door very faintly to where not too many people can hear. And Habib says, "Who is this?" He says, "I am a servant of Hussein." Habib stands up immediately. And when he stands up immediately, he comes to the door. He gets the letter from this messenger and he sees the messenger disappear into the darkness. Habib opens the letter. His wife asks, "Who is this letter from?" He says, "This is from my master Hussein ibn Ali." What does it say in the letter? It says that, "Oh Habib, oh learned Habib, that you have never forsaken me. I am alone in the plains of Karbala. Habib, don't forsake me on this day." Habib ibn Madahir, he's looking at this letter and he's shocked. And when he's looking at this letter, his wife looks at him and she says, what are you contemplating? What are you thinking about? What are you reflecting? What are you thinking about? He says that I'm thinking, he's trying to see whether his wife will commit to the sacrifice of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He says, I'm thinking about if I go. I'm thinking if I go, then you will become a widow. She says, I swear that if you don't go to your master Hussein, that I will be the one to go to your master Hussein. That this wife of Habib, she says that I let you go on one condition. He says, what's the condition? That when you see Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, you kiss him on his feet, you kiss him on his chest, you kiss him on your head, on his head. You see the Habib ibn Madar, he goes to his servant. When he goes to his servant, he says, oh my servant, I want you to take my horse to the outskirts of the city, and I'm going to meet you around like I'm doing chores. The servant takes the horse and he's standing on the outskirts of the city. When he's standing on the outskirts of the city, Habib ibn Madahir took longer to get there. And when he's walking closer and closer, his servant doesn't realize. And he sees his servant talking to the horse. And he says, oh steed of Habib. He says, oh steed of Habib, if Habib doesn't come soon, I swear I will get on you and start going to my master Hussein. Habib says, what day has come that servants and abds of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are going to defend the grandson of the Holy Prophet, that no one else will stand up. He says, by Allah, you're free. The servant says to him, oh Habib, my former master. He says, now that I'm free, I have one wish. He says, what is it? Let me go with you to the battle of Karbala. Let me go with you to see my master Hussein. That you see the Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the 10th, or do you see the days leading up to Muharram? He'd have an alam. He'd give one to Abbas, one to Zuhair. He'd give one to all of his companions who were alamdar. He would give these alams to them, and he would keep one on the side. When they would ask him, who is this alam for? Abu Abdullah al-Hussein says, I've written a letter to Habib. Habib has never turned me down. He won't do so today. You see that Habib, when he's going, there's a very big dust. You see a horse and you see two people on a horse, and they're coming towards the land of Karbala. All of a sudden, people are rejoicing. The companions are rejoicing. Habib has come to us. Sayyidah Zainab is in her tent. She hears all of these people clamoring. She sees all these people happy. She says, oh Fidda, go and see. Who is this? Fidda goes, she comes back. She says, oh Sayyidah Zainab, Habib ibn Madahir has come to Karbala. She says, Habib has come, the friend of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Yes, he's come. She says, go and say my salams to Habib. When Fidda goes and she tells Habib, oh Habib, Sayyidah Zainab or Zainab bint Ali sends her salams to you. That Habib replies, who am I that Sayyidah Zainab sends her salams to me? That bint Amirul Mu'mineen sends her salams to me. That on the day of Karbala, brothers and sisters, on the morning of Ashura, you see that Habib ibn Madahir now, he's on that day and it's Salah time. One of the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he tells him, Abu Abdullah, it's prayer time. So they go towards the prayer. And you see Hussein bin Namir, that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein tells him, give me and give us the opportunity to offer Salah. Hussein bin Namir says, what? Hussein bin Namir says that, oh man, your prayer will never be accepted. Habib says, if his prayer won't be accepted, can you imagine the status of your prayer? That Habib ibn Madahir, on that day of Ashura, he goes out and he starts fighting valiantly until one point where he falls down from his horse because he's hit. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein hears the call, Ya Abu Abdullah, Assalamu alayka Ya Abu Abdullah, Adrikni. That Abu Abdullah al-Hussein goes to his friend, he goes to his Habib, and he takes him in his lap, and he says, oh Habib, the next drink will be from the Holy Prophet. And you see that when Habib's head is taken and it's put on a spear, his son, his young son, didn't know that Habib had gone to Karbala. That when his son comes into the Maidan of Sham, when they've come into the city of Kufa, you see what happens is that he sees his father's head on a spear, and he starts running behind the horse. He starts running behind the horseman, and the horseman says to him, why is it that you look this way towards this man? He says, this is my father Habib, please give me his head. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون. مات الحسين.